Snaps good, holds good, kick on the way by Conradi, end over end, and it is good! Kyle Conradi hit a 54-yard field goal, and Iowa State leads at 20-19! Oh my!
What's up, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of the Iowa State Fan Perspective here at Play the Fight Song College Football Show. Welcome into another summer series edition of Get to Know the Opponent. As always, I'm your host tonight, and on deck for the Cyclones is the final game of the 2025 season. It is the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and who better to talk about the Cowboys than my guy, Calvin Godwin Alexander. You can find Cal at the CGA Tour Podcast on the College Huddle Network. You can find him at the CGA Tour on X, YouTube, wherever you guys get your podcast from. Cal, I appreciate you joining the show tonight. First question is the state of Oklahoma done celebrating the Oklahoma City Thunder title yet?
No, not at all. No, I think we're gonna be hyped. We're gonna be excited about this for the next 2 to 3 years. I don't know when we'll stop being excited about the team. I mean, this team is not just good for this season, but good for hopefully future seasons. So who knows when the hype and the excitement will subside, really.
I had to get my one NBA question in there. I know my brother Justin would appreciate that, but I'm really interested and excited to talk about the Oklahoma State Cowboys tonight because one of the more intriguing teams to me when covering the Big 12 and when looking at the Iowa State schedule this year, a brand that is always very large within the Big 12, but coming off of a 2024 season that I'm sure Cowboy fans are trying to forget, but a new roster turns around. And I think what my first question always is like, what is the vibe in Stillwater? We're checking in with the fan base. Where are we at in July before fall camp gets here?
You know, I'd say it's just a bunch of uncertainty. We don't know what to expect this year. Last year, we thought going into 2024 season, we thought we knew. We thought, hey, this is a team that it returns 20 starters, went to the Big 12 championship game in 2023. In 2024, we lose every single conference game, lose 9 straight into the season. That was just Gundy's worst season, period. By far and away, he's never had that bad of a season. The worst season he's had before then was back in his first year when he went 4-7. So I'd say at this point, we just don't know what to expect. The one thing we do know for sure is that the team will look completely different. New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator as well. Bunch of new recruits, bunch of new transfers in. So the team will look completely different. That's one thing we do know.
I'll preface to say too, like I don't blame any Oklahoma State fan for predicting the 10-2, the 11-1. Going into last year, everything spoke for itself. And I think we just found out the hard way how weird this Big 12 schedule and how weird this conference is. And Arizona State was another example of that. Utah was another bad example of that with high expectations. We will close the chapter on the 2024 season, but I want to know as an outsider, what was the main cause of why 2024 happened the way it did, you think? What was the main reason that just the wheels kind of fell off the wagon?
So as far as you say, an outsider, I do want to just give a couple of my credentials real quickly here. I did work for Oklahoma State University for 6 years, all throughout college, was the on-court announcer there and still work in Stillwater every day of the week. So I feel like as much as a guy could be detached from writing for the school or as much a guy could be not working for the school directly, maybe I'm the guy. And I would say it's just a weird, we don't know what's exactly going on. We were very confused, I would say, as a fan base. The vibe is just unpredictable at best. Gundy has one bad season, in my opinion. He's had bad seasons before, don't get me wrong. But he has one absolutely horrible season. That was last year. And then all of a sudden the Board of Regents are meeting to fire him or to make other concessions and other things go on in Stillwater. Last December, there was just a bunch of rumors of maybe Gundy's gone. And it was just a weird thing in Stillwater. All of a sudden, hey, maybe he's out of it. And then it's okay, he's coming back, and there's kind of maybe a little bit of a new juice. And then all of a sudden, hang on, we're 5th in transfer recruiting rankings, whereas the year before we didn't need to do any transfer rankings. That'd be the main thing I'd say. It's
sure,
year to year. Well, when you're turning 20 starters, you're going to be bad in the transfer portal, right? And this year we're going to be good in the transfer portal because we lost a bunch of starters. I mean, that's just how that works. We're not great at transfer because this year we put a lot into it. We could be because we also decided to try, but last year we didn't need to. So bunch of uncertainty. No idea who's going to be starting at quarterback week 1 or even week 4 for that matter, because 2 years ago, Gundy played 3 quarterbacks for the first 3 games of the season. Ended up going with the guy who looked just a little bit better, but that's a year that we went to the Big 12 championship. Also a year we lost to South Alabama at home, and also a year where we dropped 42-0 to UCF, granted at UCF, but still, like, there's just some bunch of weird things going on in 2023 that could have given a little bit of a insight into 2024, but no one thought it'd be as bad as it was. No one thought a Doak Walker Award winner would come back and then not be himself. No one thought the Doak would be returning that many starters and be bad. And then this year, it's like, well, who knows what's going on? We've got a guy he was the Gatorade Player of the Year for Nebraska when we recruited him, Zane Flores. He was the guy who was going to go compete with Dylan Rigola with Nebraska, and at the time was being recruited by Matt Rule before Oklahoma State kind of basically still had him signed. Yeah, I mean, Matt Rule was trying everything he could to get him out of that recruiting, whatever you want to say, commitment here.
Sure.
But that he looks like he could be the starter week 1, but he hasn't played a snap for Oklahoma State. It looks like Haas Haney could be the starter week 1. He's played 18 snaps period, has not played 1 snap where he's actually thrown the ball though in a college football game. And then the other guy is a Tulsa transfer who's on the roster. He's on the roster. He's the third guy. So if he ends up getting time, really a lot of questions start flying here of what's going on. So I don't know. Seems like we got 2 different types of quarterbacks as well too. Haas is kind of our guy where it's like, all right, he's a little bit from all the recruiting stuff you read and see and watch tape of and whatever in high school. He's a little bit more of the Blake Bell type of guy where he's not real shifty. He's just real wide. He's got some wide shoulders, but he can throw the football a couple yards down the field too. He's got a little bit more of that. He's a 3 or 4 star, depending on how you want to read him. And then Zane Ford's the other guy here, long-haired man who's looking a little bit like some Bieber-esque stuff back in the day. He's been like the coming. Like, hey, Zane can't wait until he starts. Can't wait until he plays. Can't wait until minutes, he's given. We're going to redshirt him last year because we still have Alan Bowman, and he was doing so good in the year before. So this last year, he had a medical redshirt, was granted that exemption because he had some surgery on a foot spur, which I think way it was worded was that was going to happen no matter what. It wasn't like a long-term deal. He just got taken care of the week or 2 before we lost our back quarterback in Garrett Rangel and et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden we had to start a true freshman. But just no one knows what's up, in Stillwater. That's what I'd say. I mean, it's just a bunch of confusion. What's this team going to be like? Is this team going to be able to go to a bowl game? It doesn't seem like anyone's thinking they will outside of Oklahoma State fans. And all Oklahoma State fans know is when the expectations are low, like back in 2014, all of a sudden Gundy finds a way. So do we still have hope that's going to happen? I don't know. We'll see.
If there's one thing I've learned the hard way, especially maybe in the betting markets, in betting college football games, it's usually, don't count out Mike Gundy, even if he kind of, you feel like you should, and you just never do, which I do want to talk about those quarterbacks a little bit, but I kind of want to circle back around because, when this comes out, being probably Tuesday would be when you guys are watching this in your feeds, but Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy will be taking the podium in Dallas on Wednesday. So that's my question for you guys. Like, what does the fan base want to hear from Mike Gundy? Is there something in particular? Because he's usually always pretty candid on the mic. He always usually says something that you want to at least hear. Is there anything you want him to specifically talk about or somebody to ask him in Dallas?
I'd ask him why he was so frustrated last year with the fans. It seems like last year he was really frustrated with the fan sentiment and with the fan distrust and fan gripiness, and was making some comments about fans. And I'd ask him why that got to him so much, why that wasn't understandable to him as a guy who's born, bred, and only been an Oklahoma State guy. I mean, he's had the greatest backfield ever when he was a quarterback that any guy could ever ask for. And then as coach of Oklahoma State, he's brought Oklahoma State to unheralded success. Before Gundy, there's not much to talk about at all. So, and with Gundy's going on 20 years. Why did he not kind of go 3-9? Probably could understand the fans would hate you a lot. I mean, like you're losing every conference game. You get blown out by Arizona State. Granted, they ended up, winning the conference, but it's still getting blown out. Blown out homecoming. I mean, that's homecoming. Like, we don't. Right. So that'd be the question I'd ask. Hey, why did you make these comments about the fans? About, hey, if so much so as to say, in air quotes here, something about, hey, if you can't pay for it, then you can't comment type of deal. If you can't pay for tickets. Ticket prices went up 10%, over the offseason for Oklahoma State team that went 3-9 last year. There's a lot of questions I'd ask him about that, about why did the fan annoyance and fan, whatever you want to say to it, whatever adverb works the best, go, hey, this sucked. Why did Gundy go? Why did he have to push back? It just seems odd. He wouldn't know that was coming. He's been a player for several years. He's a player, in the 80s when Oklahoma State was still not winning anything. They just had Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas. They had great, prolific running backs, but it's not like they were winning Bedlam every year during those times too against OU. It's good, but it brings up a lot of questions. Why did that get to him last year?
So where does the fan base sit with Gundy? Obviously, all-time program's best coach. He's was a quarterback for him. So beloved and will be beloved for years and years and years. But obviously, when you say things like that to the fan base, when you don't win a conference game, like there's only so much a fan base can take. Like he's obviously gotten another chance, and that's clearly like they paid the money for NIL. They're like, here, you can go spend in the portal, and we're going to give you some different assets. But like, is this like you think we want to see one more year, see if Gundy can pull something out of a hat, or like where is the fan base you think sitting with the end of this Mike Gundy tenure?
I think this is his prove it year. This is his prove it. There's something in the tank. I'm not saying he has to do anything revolutionary. He has to even get to a bowl game. He just has to show there's some type of love of Oklahoma State here with Gundy. He's always flirted with leaving Oklahoma State to go to coach Tennessee or maybe go coach in the NFL when he's had really good seasons. And all of that, I think, is fair. It's been for contract renegotiations. He's always upped his contract after that. This last season, though, the Board of Regents was able to go, listen, you've done some weird stuff in the media. You've done some weird stuff publicly, and you sucked. So last year, we're going to make some different changes. You've got to get rid of the coordinators. You've got to come back with a different scheme. Got to come back with a different philosophy. And Gundy is the only remaining coach from last year's team still coaching for Oklahoma State. Now, of course he is, but he's brought back on a guy named, I always mix my names. Doug Meacham. I was going to say Todd, but Todd Grantham and Doug Meacham. And Todd Grantham has no relation to Oklahoma State really to go back on. He's a former SEC defensive coordinator. He's had some time in the NFL, most recently with the Saints, whatever you want to make of that. But he basically had some time with the Gators, some years ago, SEC defensive coordinator wise. He's a guy Gundy brings in. He's around the same age as Gundy. Then you got Doug Meacham, who last was with Oklahoma State kind of about a decade ago, wide receivers coach, formerly at TCU, was kind of an offensive assistant, offensive guy as well with Oklahoma State here back in the day. So Gundy brought back he's bringing in his guys. He's bringing in two guys that he has recruited, he has sought out. And these are not two guys who are like, hey, they're up and coming, and at one point they might take my job. No, they're like his age. They're not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed kind of like offensive whizzes. You know what I mean? So this is kind of the prove it deal. Like he did bring some other guys back, Cooper Bassett's a former Oklahoma State guy, lineman who's on the offensive coaching staff now. He's been coaching around before, just coming straight to Oklahoma State here. But there's some guys you could see rising up the ranks within Oklahoma State here over the next couple of years that are running the staff now. But if the offensive defense coordinator don't work this year, there's going to be a lot of, okay, what are we doing? Because basically Gundy had a defensive coordinator last year that is a very, very nice man. Meeting him, very nice man. Brian Nardo, don't want to speak bad about that. But he was brought in from a Division II school out of Pennsylvania and then came into the Big 12. He loses his two best defensive guys. Defensive, he lost Nick Martin, who's NFL draft pick, Colin Oliver, NFL draft pick. Both those guys basically lost by the end of week 2. And all of a sudden, the defense plummeted, just off a cliff. So can Todd Grantham kind of do some stuff here, and we'll see the defense look a little bit better because Brian Nardo was brought in, younger guy, opposite side of the spectrum from this new defensive coordinator, Todd Grantham. And then Doug Meacham it's kind of a reboot of the Casey Dunn. If you want to say a wide receivers coach for Oklahoma State previous years and has been around the Big 12 for a while, that's Doug Meacham. So what's this offense going to look like? How's it going to look differently? Is it going to play a lot like Haas Haney, because Haas Haney was at TCU last year and transferred to Oklahoma State? Doug Meacham coming straight from TCU to Oklahoma State. So How's that going to look as well here too? There's a ton of questions around this whole deal, and a lot of hope with Oklahoma State fans, but it's a lot of questions on, hey, could you see the writing on the wall, Gundy, and you brought in a new defensive guy, but you liked the offense enough last year, it just weren't able to stop a nosebleed, so we got to bring in some type of offense that's a new name, even if it's the same philosophy. So many questions there with that too.
That's why you're here to talk about it, Cal, and that's why I love bringing up this team. You mentioned Meacham, and the question is obviously, what is he going to run? What is their style going to be this year? You lose a tailback like Ollie Gordon, who you're going to be looking for somebody to, I don't know, do you find somebody that runs the ball 30 times, or maybe you split those carries up? I'm more like, where do you guys lean on? How is the offensive style going to look this year? Do you lean it's going to be pass heavy with these new quarterbacks, or are they going to kind of rely on the run to get things started?
I don't think anyone knows, to be honest. I think that's the weirdest part about it, is that you bring in the running backs on the roster that have playing time, have played okay, but they were behind Ollie Gordon, who's phenomenal. So they haven't played a ton. They played in blowouts and in kind of garbage time minutes. So you've got a guy named Trent Howland, who's basically a fullback size guy. He's 240. He's 6 foot. He runs through the tackles more upright than with his head down. So he can go through a bunch of guys, but not everyone. And he's not the fastest dude in the world, of course. But then you've got a guy named Rodney Fields Jr., who's incredibly quick and is kind of is the opposite side of that spectrum as it comes to running backs. And it's also certain quickness and stuff. Then we brought in a Georgia State transfer as well, too. And we've got other running back recruits on the roster. So I don't know what the running back room even looks like at this point of who's leading the pack. I got to feel like Trent Howland has some type of role where he knows he's carved out in, just because he's still here and because he plays a different style than the other couple guys who are more quick backs. But I'd say it's going to be a lot of short passes, a lot of intermediary passes, a lot of timing stuff just to get the quarterbacks kind of in rhythm early on in games, and a lot of stuff that's a lot of swing passes, a lot of, halfback dump offs, that type of stuff too. Because the O-line's new too. So it's not like we're going to block a ton of guys either. But maybe we will. I mean, it's just, we've gotten some offensive lineman recruits in that, and transfers that have been looking really good. We've definitely have focused really hard on the lines and both the recruiting and the transfer portal here for this season. But I mean, I'd say I'm more excited about 2026 at the end of the day and how that's going to look, just because these are two guys at quarterback who have combined 18 snaps to their name and 0 pass attempts. So it's a total crapshoot here on what we're going to expect.
Do you think is the fan base leaning towards a certain guy more? Like, do you get at quarterback? Do you think the fan base wants to see maybe more Zane, since he is your recruit, obviously a little higher profile, or are they interested in Haas and kind of, him tagging along with Meacham and maybe what that looks like?
I'd say the fan base is, I think it'll be weird. I think if Meacham if Haas is the guy who starts first, there'll be a real quick Oklahoma State wanting to pull the rope, pull the trigger. Hey, let's put in Zane, because Zane's more of the prototypical Mason Rudolph, Brandon Whedon, air the ball out guy. Mm-hmm. Now, in the very weird, super limited spring practice that guys were able to go to, it wasn't a game. I wouldn't call it a game, because the refs were calling anything. If the quarterback even got a hand close to him, they were down. So, like, Zane Flores, I think at one point has like negative 33 yards rushing when he actually did run for a couple of yards. It's just because there's one play where defensive lineman got his hand close to him and it was 15 yards negative. So there's not really a lot to pull from that game, I'd say. But I can't believe I just called it a game. But I'd say Zane is more of the guy, at least recruiting wise, prototypically, who can move, has quickness, but is more of a passing type of guy, more of a conventional Oklahoma State seen this type of guy before, play quarterback. He's not a Spencer Sanders, nowhere near that quickness and speed, but he looks more mobile for sure than Mason Rudolph and Brandon Whedon. So he's somewhere in between there. Whereas Haas, I don't think we've seen the guy like him for Oklahoma State in quite some time. He's more of the really stretching here, kind of the similarities, but I'd say maybe he's a little bit like J.W. Walsh. I mean, he's the guy who, Oklahoma State fans know is like a guy you'd bring in short yard situations, be able to plow through a couple guys, but also can easily make a couple jump passes that look incredible. But then again, Haas is a really high recruiting profile, like 3 or 4 stars wherever you look at it. Incredible recruit as well too. And he didn't play at TCU last year because he's a redshirt freshman and they had a guy. So still have a guy right now. So maybe he's transferring for opportunity experience because he knew he wasn't going to start because they had a guy coming in. And he knows Oklahoma State will give him a chance at least. And he knows Doug Meacham's like, hey, you got a shot to come up here and get some minutes in the Big 12. But then again, every single ranking and recruiting and every single thing I look at for Oklahoma State, it's like, yeah, they might have the 13th to 16th best starting quarterback week 1. And that makes me also just really question a lot of things. That's the thing with anyone, right? I'm trying to keep my expectations like tempered and regulated. All of a sudden, I'm like, okay, it's one website here, 247. It's like Hosseini and Johnny Manziel. What are the similarities? Like, I mean, that seems insane, but cool. I'm not going to be mad about that. But also, I'm going to be questioning a lot of things about that too, right? There's two sides of the coin, right? There's the best recruit in Oklahoma State's history named Bobby Reed, who sparks the "I'm a man, I'm 40" speech. One of the highest recruits in Oklahoma State's history by far and away. Almost a 5-star quarterback. Best recruit he ever had at the time. And Gundy's out here saying, I'm a man, I'm 40. Stop talking about this kid who's being fed soup by his mom while he's changing the dressing room. Like, what is the story? We won the game, And then you've got that guy who absolutely plummets. Is no one to talk about. Is not a guy. That's it. And then you've also got the other type of guys that Oklahoma State's been able to find year in, year out. You've got James Washington, who is like a 2-star guy. You've got, of course, Brandon Whedon, who, when he joined the team, no one had any idea. You've got Rudolph, who is a highly talented recruit, but it just went the exact opposite way of Bobby Reed. But then again, maybe Rudolph left a little bit on the table too. So there's just a ton of like, man, I think Gundy's a pretty good quarterbacks coach. I think we're pretty darn good at getting quarterbacks through our system and looking better. But then again, are all the quarterbacks suffering as well because they've got brand new systems to learn from? Is Zane starting out at like basically where Haas is because he's learning a whole new system as well too, and Doug Meacham's doing a whole different thing than Casey Dunn did. But then again, later on this week here at Media Days, Gundy's not going to say anything that's going to give us any information. If he did, I would be shocked, absolutely shocked.
And that's the thing too. And there still could be a lot of optimism with Haas and with Zane, especially in the Big 12 with these rankings too this year. You got 14 other counterparts who all have starting quarterbacks returning. And it's just hard to give the benefit of the doubt right now when you've never seen anything. But you look at Sam Leavitt last year. Sam Leavitt was ranked probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the Big 12 heading into 2024. So I think Oklahoma State fans should feel very optimistic with whoever that decides to go under center. Maybe this is a transition to the defense, Cal, or not. I am curious, though, just because with 40 different transfers, it could be offense, could be defense. Like, who could be the most impactful guy that you look at on paper? You're like, yeah, I think that guy's going to come in and start right away, and he's going to make an impact for this team that we desperately needed.
I don't know how to say his name correctly, so you have to agree with me here, but it's Carson Suse, I think is how to say it. He's a 3-star transfer guy. He was previously a quarterback at BYU originally when he was there. He's one of our highest rated recruit ranking guys, transferring in. But he apparently is a really athletic guy, which we already have a guy named Josh Ford on the roster who's going to Big 12 Media Days, who's our current tight end, who's hyped up. But then I just think that Carson's going to be able to bring a little bit different type of playmaking ability. I would assume we're just going to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. We're going to be really focused offensively and getting our quarterbacks easy looks, easy completions, easy stuff, while also at the same point not having to rely a ton on the offensive line to block for a while. So that to me means a lot of short passes to tight ends, a lot of dump offs, that type of stuff. And I think that Josh Ford and Carson Suse will have a lot of time where they'll be able to get some passes and stuff here, be able to make it work. Fingers crossed, at least.
And I think that's an underrated facet, I think, of Oklahoma State's offense a little bit. Because if you grab a random college football fan and you say, what do you think of when you think of Oklahoma State's offense? It's probably Justin Blackman and Des Bryant and those receivers. But am I wrong to say the tight ends are a little underrated in the Gundy era? Like, I think of, like, as a Colts fan, like Jelani Woods, like I thought like he was a pretty good player. And I think Ford's going to have a big impact in this offense too. Am I wrong in saying that?
Not at all. No, I think one of the best stories of, oh gosh, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head now. I know I can remember. Blake Jarwin is one of the best Oklahoma State stories by far and away. He came in as a walk-on for Oklahoma State. He was not a recruit that was touted whatsoever. Ends up going on to play for the Dallas Cowboys. Has a career-ending injury. But he was getting minutes as a Cowboy. I mean, he was a guy you could go buy a Dallas Cowboys jersey for him, number 89 at back in the day. And he's getting a lot of time with Mason Rudolph there as well too. But Blake Jarwin, Jaws was really good. Oklahoma State's had plenty of good, Brandon Pettigrew's one of the guys there for Oklahoma State back with the Lions back a while ago. They've had a lot of good tight ends for sure. Totally agree on that.
Now we'll flip it over to the defense quickly. A group that gave up a lot of points last year. I think it can only get better from here. If you want to, encourage Oklahoma State fans, I don't think it can get worse defensively. So you have something to build off on there. But what should be priority number one for Todd Grantham in fixing this defense to be better in 2025? What was the main issue last year that it's got to be corrected this year?
Just got to have some depth. Honestly, that's the one thing I worry about with this team by far and away, is that we have some good recruits that'll start, that'll look promising, but we won't have depth behind them. That's the biggest worry I have with this team. It's not that we'll look super young. I know that's going to be happening. I know that we won't look polished all the time. I know that what just won't happen. These guys haven't had a lot of time, multiple seasons to, coagulate and get together and, play a lot of time in practice. I just know that these guys don't have a lot behind him. I mean, with quarterback, I'm talking about two different guys. Running back, I'm talking about a couple different guys. But wide receiver room, I don't know. I mean, the only guy who's on Oklahoma State's roster right now, who's throwing a touchdown, is Sam Jackson the fifth, who's a wide receiver who transferred in. He threw against Oklahoma State here when he's quarterback. So there's just a lot of things where I'm like, man, defensive line, really hope that Iman Oates can just prove himself, be a run stopper, be the big dude up front who can at least get to the quarterback, cause some pressure. That's the main thing, because Oklahoma State's always been the team in my mind that is the bend don't break philosophy. We'll give up plenty of points. We will, but we won't give up the biggest play all time. We're going to make you have to be an offense who works your way down the field and at least not score in 4 plays. Last year against Colorado, man, that Travis Hunter Heisman footage looked great against us. I was sick of seeing it on ESPN. So glad we get to flip the page. But our defense just looked like they were getting burned every play. It just looked like we weren't getting to the quarterback, causing enough pressure. That's against a Colorado team that did not have an offensive line. So I'm really hoping that this defensive line can really get to the quarterback a lot more, prove it up front, have guys on the end here who make a difference this year. Because last year we had 2 guys who were the guys, and then by week 4, both were gone for the rest of the season, and Nick Martin didn't play that much after week 2 anyway. So It was tough last year for a ton of reasons. It wasn't just solely on injuries at all. I don't want to make that excuse, but man, I hope we don't have that same injury bug this year for sure.
I think a lot of teams get, the injury bug thing it goes underrated, and you don't want to make excuses for your team, but it can be just a real thing at times, especially in the portal era where just finding depth at the Power 4 levels, even the Georgias and the Alabamas, they struggle to do it now. There's a reason there's no Nick Saban dynasties at this point, because they don't have the depth to kind of replenish. So I think you see that around college football a lot, which makes just staying healthy in a full season super imperative. Let's go to the schedule, because I love to break down the schedule and look at it for the Oklahoma State Cowboys this year. My first initial thoughts when I look at the schedule for Oklahoma State is, the Oregon game, probably the toughest non-conference game for any Big 12 opponent this season. But I think the last 5 games of the year for Oklahoma State is their toughest stretch. It starts with Texas Tech at home, Texas Tech on the road, Kansas on the road, Kansas State at home, at UCF, Iowa State at home. You're playing Texas Tech, Kansas State, and Iowa State, who are pretty much, I think, 3 of the top 4 in odds to win the Big 12 this year, outside of maybe obviously your favorites in Arizona State. Is that kind of what you think too, Cal? Is get through, you probably want to win your games early, most of your games early, if you want to shoot for that that bowl game spot in 2025.
Yeah, that's got to be the emphasis here. We've got to win, a couple road games here to make it happen, but we've got to win at Arizona's got to be a win. And really either at KU or at UCF have to be a win in my mind for us to go to a bowl game. Otherwise, it's not in the cards. I'd love to say, hey, on senior day, we beat Iowa State at home, but top 25 team in the country, I'm not predicting that with 2 freshman quarterbacks. Just can't get it out of me today. In K-State at home, man, K-State doesn't play good in Stillwater. we beat them 2 years ago and we shouldn't have 30-21. That was like kind of the first game where it's like, hang on a second, we might be okay. And who knows? Maybe this year, it'll look different, or maybe this year Avery Johnson will be able to put it all on us like he did last time and then keep that momentum going for K-State, because it seemed like they just had an up and down season last year. But Texas Tech has the number one recruiting class in the Big 12 and almost number one recruiting class transfers and recruits in the country. So I'm not predicting that one. It's really got to be, hey, we play UT Martin's got to be a win. Tulsa's got to be a win. And then all of a sudden we're looking at it going, okay, I don't want to think of Baylor as a win just because they're going to be tough with Sawyer Robertson coming back. But at Arizona, Houston, Cincinnati, those are the three right there where we got to pick up those 3 wins basically in a row, and then win one of those kind of last 5 games here as well to get bowl eligible.
I'm curious because Iowa State, fortunately, whatever you want to say, we're stuck with Iowa as our big non-con team every year, which I love the rivalry game. Don't get me wrong, but I'm interested, like, what is the Oklahoma State fan base thoughts on that Oregon game? I think it's an awesome opportunity for the Big 12 to hopefully showcase something, but like, what's the expectation traveling to Eugene, and how does the fan base feel about picking that one up this year?
I've weirdly just through a lot of weird connections and living out west for a couple of years. I have a lot of connections to the Oregon fan base and kind of like Oregon fans for the most part here because I worked with a lot of them in San Diego. And I was thinking, hey, you know what? When we schedule that game, no, I'm not going to that. And then after last season, it's really hard for me to think I want to go to that game. I mean, at all. I just think it'll be I think it could be a game where Oregon gets their feet under him and wins it, but kind of convincingly. And it's, it's not the biggest bloodbath in the world. Or on the other side of it, I think Oregon puts it all on us and early, and it's not close. So we don't play we play UT Martin on a Thursday. We've got a couple days off extra before, we play Oregon. I'm looking forward to that. That's nice. But man, going up to Autzen Stadium and playing Pacific Northwest, that doesn't look great in my eyes. This would be one thing if it was maybe last year and we had Big 12 title hopes and it was being really a good, hey, we'll add to the schedule. Even if we lose this one, we could probably drop it and still go on. Man, this is not a great year to play Oregon. I'm hoping that we just show some effort, look decent, and look like we can survive a little bit against a really good Big Ten team. So weird saying that, but yeah, hopefully we can just look decent against them, because I'm not looking forward to that matchup necessarily from the, I think we're going to be in it, aspect. Sure.
So 2025 as a whole, you kind of laid the groundwork. I think obviously Cowboys fans, they want to get back to a bowl game, but what does a successful season look like for Oklahoma State in 2025? I'm assuming kind of just what you said. Is it a bowl game or is there something more?
But bowl game would be success at this point. I think last year that's doubling our wins from last season. That's showing a plenty of good games here and there and good moments from an offense that's super young, from offensive and defense coordinators who are brand new to the program, at least, or rejoined the program after a long time of being away in Meacham. And so to me, really just, doubling the win total from last year, that's probably as good as you can get. Now, if we get 5 wins and a couple are close, I'm not going to be mad about it. It sucked to not go to a bowl game, but it'd also be a sign of the times here too, of like, hey, the Big 12 is becoming way more even than anyone thinks. Is Cincinnati going to be just bad forever? I don't think so. I don't think that KU is also going to be, hey, they got Jalen Daniels in his 6th year and all of a sudden they're going to be playing great or whatever. There's too much hope and excitement in that for me to believe it. But then KU's got a brand new football team. They're upgrading their facilities. So they're taking it seriously. I mean, it's just a lot of, man, I think this is really where the Big 12 maybe levels out and Oklahoma State fans go, man, this kind of sucks a little bit now that everyone's a little bit more even, just because it used to be Oklahoma State, Texas, OU, Iowa State, K-State, and then I don't want to say everyone else that broadly, but kind of that speaking, right? Like Iowa State would make a Big 12 championship game. K-State would, Oklahoma State would, as well, Baylor, OU, and Texas, of course. And now it's like, all right, well, is Baylor really good, or is this Dave Aranda's last season too? I mean, there's just a bunch of good storylines going into this year, and I'm much more excited to be an Oklahoma State fan this year than I have been in years past, because there's a lot more optimism. There's a lot more hope of what could this team look like, what could a new offense look like, what could a new defense look like, versus, man, we're just got all these good expectations and hopefully don't fall short.
Well, and I think that's a good way to put it, because I think there's momentum being built in the recruiting trail too. Oklahoma State's had a decent little week themselves. I think it was last week where didn't they pick up 2 4-star defensive linemen in the high school ranks too? So I think they flipped a cornerback from Kansas State. I might have saw. So it feels like there is a positive momentum, and you're going to get the national media probably saying, it's bowl game or bust for Gundy, but I just don't think that's necessarily fair, because you do see positive momentum on the recruiting trail. Maybe 5 wins, and you're competitive in every game, and the young guys look really good. And young guys, I mean, either Zane or Haas look really good. And you're like, okay, now next year we can make a jump. That feels pretty fair. Am I wrong to say it's not bowl game or bust for Gundy?
I think it'd be wrong to say that it's bowl game or bust, just completely. But I think at the same point, it's there's a lot in my mind of like, hey, it's got to be competitive. It's got to be 5 wins and competitive, because UT Martin, Tulsa, those have to be wins. Those are both those games at home this year. I mean, there's UT Martin, of course, has to be a win. That's without saying. But then again, like, Arizona, all right, they bring back their quarterback from last year. They bring back their head coach from last year. They are already going to play a Big 12 opponent before they play us. They're going to, they're going to be a little bit cycled through. It's not their first game of the season in the Big 12 schedule either. So, like, how are they going to look? How are we going to look against Baylor at home? I mean, there's just a lot of, like, what ifs, and it'll be a lot of the eye test too. I mean, I don't, to your point, I don't think it's bowl game or bust, but I think it's pretty close to bowl game or bust. I mean, if the season starts looking real rough real early, I think Gundy maybe, is this is last year. I mean, he's not going to want to go out on a bad foot, is my point. Like,
yep,
he doesn't want to get fired. I don't think. If anything, I think he agrees to a buyout at the end of the year, next season, if it doesn't go well, or if it goes really well, he signs on for a couple more years, or he stays throughout the ranks of his contract till 2030. That's it. I don't think he is like wanting to coach till he's 70. I just don't think he's that type of guy. But I think, he's, gets 60 and close to it and kind of starts going, hey, you know what? I want to enjoy coming back to Stillwater where my name's on the field or whatever it is, or on the stadium and all type of stuff, right?
100%. Absolutely. And he's going to keep coaching until that, once the mullet turns gray, then that might be, it's time to go.
Hot topic here. Could be controversial, but it could already be just gray if he wasn't dyeing it. Who knows?
Yep. It's a little too dark for it's something's a little fishy.
Looks pretty darn good for him to be 55 plus. That's all I'll say.
Especially with all the stress this year. It's like, you got to feel like I'd be losing hair if I had to deal with what I deal with a Division I head football coach.
Oh man, no kidding. Yeah, I feel like my hair's already going gray at 31, so I can't believe him. It's already full black. So props to him.
That's awesome. Well, Cal, I appreciate you jumping on with us. That was a lot of good stuff, and it makes me really even more intrigued on what this Oklahoma State team will look like. Before we kind of head out of here, do you think there's anything else that we missed that people should know about this Oklahoma State team this year?
I'm curious, what do you guys think? Like, what's your 2-minute? That's what I think of Oklahoma State this year. Like, because that's the thing. I can read all the Oklahoma State stuff I want, or all the national media stuff I want, but it's one or the other. Is there? What do you guys think?
Well, I said before, it's so hard to count out Mike Gundy, and last year was just so bizarre to see. Like, they're like, oh, it's like losing to South Alabama 2 years ago. They'll bounce back. Like, even after a couple of those those conference losses, they'll find a way. I'm a little interested to see, like you mentioned, he brings in his guys at the coordinator spot. It's like, it does feel like I need to call on my guys for one last hurrah. I can't take a chance on a Division II defensive coordinator kind of thing. And the quarterback situation in Stillwater is one of the most intriguing too, just because, like I said, there's got to be 12, 13 returning starting quarterbacks in the Big 12. I know what I'm getting out of the majority of those guys. I want to see what these new guys look like in this league, because, are we going to see another Arizona State turn around out of any of these teams who are ranked maybe 10 through 16? I know as an Iowa State fan, if we do exceed the expectation and we're fighting for a Big 12 championship spot at the end of the day, I think Stillwater's one of the last places I'd rather go to in late November to try and to get to Dallas. So it just, but maybe bias or something there. I love Stillwater as a town. Went there in 2020. What was that? 21. One of those weird COVID years where they let like 10,000 people in. But yeah, so that's where I'm at Iowa State wise. I don't feel totally comfortable with where Oklahoma State would be maybe sitting in that last game of the year.
All right. Well, I'll take that with a, grain of salt a little bit, but of course, love to hear it. At the same point, I think that's some optimistic viewpoints for Oklahoma State to hear. So I love it.
100%. And I am sure you as well. We can't wait for Dallas, and we can't wait for these media days and for these coaches to get out and talk. So Cal, we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Again, you can go find Cal and all of his stuff, the CGA Tour Podcast. You can find him at the CGA Tour on X and YouTube. That is Calvin Godwin Alexander, the representative for the Oklahoma State Cowboys here on the Iowa State Perspective. My name is Jake. We will be back again next week, and we got a few teams left. We'll see who comes out next week. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks, Cal.
Thank you.
Go Cyclones.